Welcome to the CodeAbility podcast, where we amplify the voices of people with disabilities in computing. I'm Meredith Moore, an assistant professor of computer science at Drake University. CodeAbility exists to build community and promote accessibility in computing, one story at a time. This podcast is made possible thanks to the support of the National Science Foundation's Broadening Participation in Computing Alliance, Access Computing. For over a decade, Access Computing has been dedicated to making computing more accessible. Whether you're a developer, educator, or advocate, we hope these conversations inspire you to think differently about technology and the power of inclusive design. Today, as a guest, we have Meenakshi Das. Meena is a software engineer at Microsoft who focuses on creating accessible web experiences. Drawing from her own experience with a speech disability, Meena is deeply committed to tech inclusion and ensuring that digital spaces are accessible to everyone. She co-founded the Working with Disabilities Support Group for Professionals with Disabilities, which has over 4,000 members. Recognized for her efforts, she has received accolades including induction into the National Susan M. Daniels National Disability Mentoring Hall of Fame, University of Washington's Do It Trailblazer, Disability in Next Gen Leader of the Year, and Reinvented Magazine's Women of the Year. Meena is a board member at the nonprofit Teach Access, which aims to close the digital accessibility skills gap and has been featured in news outlets such as The Times of India, ABC News, and NASDAQ for her insights on tech and disability. You can follow her on Instagram at Accessibility in Tech, where she shares accessibility tidbits and experiences from her personal life. Before we begin, I want to note that this podcast operates independently of my teaching and research roles at Drake University. However, it does align with my broader mission to promote accessibility in computing and build inclusive spaces. Let's go ahead and get started. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to our guest. We have Meena Das here. You just heard all about her, and I'd love to just start by maybe asking Meena to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you're here to talk about today.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Meena. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. I uh, identify as a person with a speech disability, specifically a stutter. So, apart of from my day job at Microsoft, I try to do accessibility work on the side. So one of my main, you can say, passion projects is this support group that I formed named Working with Disabilities. So it's just a social media group for people with or without disabilities to learn from each other, share resources, talk about accommodations. We started with 30, 40 people 2 years back, and then now we are almost 3,500 people. So yeah, just trying to do my best of what I can to give back. And yeah, thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. We're super excited to have this conversation and learn more about how you got to where you are today and learn more from what you've learned from the support group and all the other cool things that you do. Before we jump into any of that, one of the things that I like to ask our guests is what their preference is in language. So we've talked a little bit about person first language and identity first language in previous episodes, and I like to ask and see what your preference is, or if you have a strong preference between saying like I am a person who stutters, or I guess I stutter would maybe be the identity first language. Do you have a preference on how people refer to you if you're talking about your
Uh,
disability?
yeah, I think I'm a person who stutters. Uh, it sounds good, uh, uh, but then when I don't use the word stutter, I just say disabled, uh, because uh, I guess saying that I am a stutterer sounds a bit like strange. So yeah. If I have to say, you use the word stutter, I will say uh, that I am somebody who stutters. But then at the same time, I say that I am disabled too. So both, I guess.
Good, cool. And that's what I love about this is that we're trying to really I mean, first of all, give an example of how to ask somebody with a disability what language they prefer, right? Because I think that that's an important thing and something that a lot of people don't necessarily feel comfortable, and there's a lot of uncertainty around how to talk about disability. So I think that setting examples about how to talk about disability and also just showing some preferences and how people might have different preferences, and it's okay to ask and just respect what people how they want to be talked about, right? So thank
Definitely.
you. um and that's interesting that it's like sometimes it's person first, sometimes it's identity first, and that's cool. So one of the other questions I really like to start with is get a feel for how you got started in computer science. Like, were you a kid who just knew that you were going to go into tech or computer science? Were there any foundational memories that led you to pursue it, or how did you find yourself a software engineer?
Yeah. So actually, when I first started school, my major was economics. So uh, because my dad is an economist, so guess I just like wanted to follow his footsteps. Uh, I had no clue about like what coding is, uh, but then think it was my second semester of my freshman year where we like had to choose some electives, uh, and then one of the electives was CS, the intro to coding class. So yeah, just seemed like a very interesting class. So in my first few weeks of the class, it was just so much fun to just like think so logically and to solve these problems. It just felt good. So now the reason sounds a little dumb, uh, but then one of the like small reasons why I then changed my major from economics to CS was that computer science did not have a lot of like speaking classes. So and I didn't like want to speak much. So yeah, when I saw it just like had well, one communication class requirement. So I was like, this is so cool. I don't have to do speaking on this major. And yeah, so just changed my major to CS and sophomore year. Like, that's so interesting to like see now is that the opportunity that I got from my science education, they have like made me so confident that I'm like no longer scared of speaking. So of like 5 years back, you had asked me to do this podcast, like my first thought would be like, oh, not at all, like not speaking to public. And yeah, I guess like now, CS and the tech field has just given me so many opportunities that like I'm just so much more self-confident.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I feel like it's really common that people don't know what computer science is when they start off. Like nobody, it's I've heard that as a path to computer science more than you would expect. It's a lot more that people are like, oh, I just kind of fell into it, or I took a class and I really, really loved it.
Yeah,
Instead of people who just say, I mean, of course there are some people who say, oh, I want to be a computer scientist from the day
yeah,
that they could walk, especially these days. But yeah, I love that. I love that
okay.
it's always okay to change your major, right? And
Yeah,
to take a different path and to try something out. And when you, I mean, I also really um, resonate with the joy of problem solving, right? There's just so
yeah,
much like joy and confidence and like pushing through that resiliency of having something break and not knowing how to fix it and then figuring out how to fix it really does build confidence, and it builds the confidence
yeah,
in yourself to be able to solve a problem and to be able to build whatever you want. I think that computer science is often not marketed as a super like creative power tool, but I think that it should be,
yeah.
you know? You can really build
Very true.
whatever you want. So thank you for that. That's great. It's always interesting to hear how people have got to where they are. Um, so I would love to hear a little bit more about this group, the Working with Disabilities group. I've joined it for a few months, and it's been really cool to watch people post things. I'm impressed that you've been able to foster such a strong community through a social media platform. Can you tell me a little bit about like how that started and where that idea came from, and maybe like what you've learned from it as well?
Yeah. So I think 2 3 years back, I'm a part of like a lot of Facebook groups. They are for women in the tech field, for South Asian people. So yeah, and I have found such a strong support system from those kind of groups too. One of my best friends uh, found her through a group for women in the tech field. So as I was part of these like g- groups, I did not uh, really see one for people with disabilities. They there are a lot of like disability specific groups. There'll be groups for just blind people. There'll be groups for just deaf people. But I thought what we like really need is like for the entire disability community to come together, just support each other. So yeah, me and another one of my friend, we just like thought of starting this group to share up postings and to share opportunities and then start discussions some topics. So yeah, we just started with say 30 40 people, and then now as I said, uh, we are up to 3,400 people, and then every day we keep on uh, getting so many more requests to join the group. You can like sort of try to do the same thing with the website, a mailing list, um, but then Facebook, despite all its challenges, it's still the most uh, popular platform to form such groups. People still use Facebook. So, yeah, so I'm just so happy with the group. Few months back, somebody like messaged me saying, thank you so much for doing this. I have just found so much support here. So, yeah, I- I'm definitely very happy to see where the group is today.
Yeah, it seems like so I've been following some of the posts that I see on the day-to-day basis in the group, and it seems like there's lots of really good articles shared and opportunities for mentorship or jobs or how to ask for accommodations and what accommodations somebody might ask for. These are all the things that I've seen. And also I've seen some research happening as well, right? So some people are posting surveys,
Yeah.
and it just seems like it's a really great resource and community and so, like a place to find support, which is awesome. The more of those, the better, right?
Yep, definitely.
That's great. So saw a need, and you went ahead and you built something that fits that need, and that's awesome. And I'm sure that a lot of people have found that really helpful. Um,
Thank you.
and if you want to join the group, or if you're interested in learning more about it, we'll include a link to the Facebook group as well in the description for the podcast episode. So I guess one of the questions that I also like to talk about a little bit is what obstacles have you encountered, maybe because of your disability, maybe not, but in getting to where you are today? Sounds like you said that one of the reasons you chose computer science is because you didn't have as much speaking or communication classes. But has there been like what things have you had to overcome to get where you're at today, and maybe what can our listeners learn from that as well?
Yeah. So I think that one of the challenges that I faced early in my like school days, when I was trying to find internships and stuff. So this was, I think, before I knew about access computing. I did not know that I could ask for accommodations for my speech disability for interviews, and I thought, if I told them, they would judge me. Uh, they would think I'm like not smart enough. So would like try to hide my stutter basically. So and I like still uh, remember this like time when I had one internship interview, and then I basically I did not let them know about my stutter, and in the process of like trying to like hide my stutter, I just like basically spoke a few words for every question. And then at that time, I was like seeing the like faces. Mm, they did not say anything mean to me, but like I'm sure they must be like thinking, why is she not talking? Like, why is she just saying like three words for everything we ask her? And then basically after that interview was done, I just like ran into the bathroom and I just cried because I thought, what is wrong with me? Why am I so scared to like at least talk? And I thought that like I would never get an internship. Yeah, I just didn't know. So I guess slowly after a few weeks, I like spoke to my advisor, Dr. Sarah Lee, and then he actually really introduced me to access computing, and just like being part of the mailing list. I just like learned about accommodations for interviews. So for my next interview, I made sure let them know that I have a speech disability. So please be patient with me. And then at the same time, got an accommodation to use typing uh, rather than speaking, because speaking sometimes can be too tiring for me. So if I'm so tired speaking the whole time, I can't focus on the interview. So because of that, I got typing as an accommodation too. I think for me personally, it was just the obstacle of myself internalized fear that like uh, people won't be patient with my stutter. Had like sort of ingrained this like feeling in my heart that I like have to hide my stutter uh, to be successful. But I slowly realized it's like not the case. I can be who I am with my stutter, uh, and then at the same time, I can like ask for what I need to succeed. It's fine to do so. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so don't be afraid to ask for accommodations. And I think that a lot of that is just knowing that it's a thing, that accommodations are a thing that you can ask for and that should be provided to you. And sometimes it's a matter of not knowing what accommodations you could get.
Yeah.
But I think that's also where things like your support group come in so handy, where you have people who have been through it and who might have a similar disability or might know of resources like access computing to be able to say, hey, if you're struggling with interview, hey, here's a whole list of resources or here's some accommodations you can ask for.
Oh,
Um, that's great. That's great advice. So you mentioned Access Computing a little bit there, and Access Computing is the primary sponsor for this podcast. They've been super generous with us. So I guess can you tell me a little bit about more about what resources you've used from Access Computing, or maybe what opportunities you have found through Access Computing as well, and just maybe how that's impacted your career?
yeah. One of the main resources from access computing. Their uh, community, they just have such a vibrant uh, community of disabled students, teachers, uh, educators, researchers who all want to make technology more accessible for everybody. So they like have a fantastic mailing list. It's a fantastic group of people, uh, and I think the one another resource uh, which was really beneficial to me was the conference travel funding. So access computing, they funded me to go to, I think, two conferences. The first one was the CSUN conference, which is a very famous accessibility conference. And I think this second one was the Grace Hopper conference. So both these conferences were just uh, such an amazing experience for me. At the first season accessibility one, I just like had a chance to like meet so many or disabled people like who are doing like such great work, because just seeing them made me feel so motivated. And the same thing goes for the Grace Hopper conference too. It's a conference for women in the tech field, and just being around like so many women technologists, it's a very good experience. I don't think that without access computing's support would like had a chance to go there. Their like funding helped me so much, so just very grateful to them for sure. I just like want to give a shout out to Dr. Brianna Blazer. She is fantastic person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. She's great. And I totally like, so I haven't been to CSUN yet before, but I have been to Grace Hopper for I think 5 of the last 7 years, maybe. And it's great.
Um,
It's a great conference, especially for women who are interested in computing, to be able to see that many other women in computing. And yeah. So I want to hear a little bit more about what you do at Microsoft and what it's like to work at Microsoft with a disability.
yeah. So I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. I work mostly uh, on the front end side. So using JavaScript, TypeScript, React. At the same time, I like serve as the accessibility champion for the team. I make sure to like find and fix accessibility bugs, to make sure that we ship an able product to the users. I joined Microsoft last June. I've been here almost 1.5 years now. It's been a very good experience for me, both my work wise and uh, the speech wise too. So, uh, and I use the same kind of accommodations what I used for my interviews. So, and we have meetings, make sure if I'm like feeling too tired to say this thing, I'll make sure to like type it on the chat box, and then someone will like read it out to me to everybody. Think uh, it's been working well so far. Uh, my team is flexible, open to different communication styles like mine, which I think is very important. I think this, I guess, like fast paced world we have, we give a lot of importance to like speaking, but I think it's like important to give the same kind of importance to writing too. Speaking does not like have to be the only way to like communicate with people. Just like writing and like reading can be so good. So yeah, it's important to be open to these different communication styles.
Absolutely. I'm glad that it seems like Microsoft is a really good fit so far. It seems like you're enjoying your work.
For sure, yeah.
And I love that they have an accessibility champion too for your team, or that's a role that you can fill. That made me think about this. And you are also currently, relatively recently, sitting on the Teach Access board. So, anybody who doesn't know, Teach Access is this great organization that combines both industry and academia with the goal of not necessarily, well, I mean, they support teaching accessibly, so teaching in an accessible manner, but they really are a champion for teaching accessibility in schools as well. So I know I went through my undergraduate education and had no clue, didn't have any mention of web accessibility or what it means to make tools that are accessible to everybody, not just to whatever the quote unquote normal user is, which doesn't even exist, right? Normal is
Yeah.
not a thing. So I'm curious, did you learn about web accessibility in school, or when did you learn about web accessibility, and when did you learn about web accessibility?
Yeah. So I don't think they taught us accessibility uh, as a part of a school course, to be honest. Yeah. I don't remember like a class. And then even in a normal web development class, we didn't talk about it. Don't remember talking about it. So I think the first time that I learned about web accessibility was through access computing. Yeah, they have a lot of like resources on their website where you can like learn about accessibility. Yeah, and then actually me and my advisor Dr. Lee, we had gotten a mini grant uh, from Access Computing to like conduct a workshop for coding workshop for people who are blind. So I think when we got this grant, I like started to learn more uh, about web accessibility, about screen readers, like how they in, interact with the web and stuff like that. But then, yeah, as you said, it should be a part of the curriculum for sure, and it should not just be like a chapter at the end. You need to uh, apply those uh, principles of let's say e- every project that you do that class. So yeah, I think teach access is like doing such a amazing thing, promoting this kind of teaching. So yeah, I just hope that more and more schools will like join us.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really take a ton of effort to at least mention it, right? And to it's really a
Yeah,
perspective shifting thing. I know I didn't know about web accessibility until I was in grad school, and shout out to Brian, who might be on the podcast later as a speaker. But he was my academic sibling, I like to call it, right? So in the same lab as my PhD cohort, and Brian's blind. And I just didn't realize how many things were made more difficult by being blind,
yeah,
and that really um, there's lots of examples of times where I was like, it kind of brought web accessibility front and center, because here was my friend trying to access things that I had access to and he didn't have the same access, and it really changed my perspective on what it means to have tech that is universally designed and that works for everybody. So I think that even just mentioning that, or showing, like playing a video of a screen reader in a web development class and having students even
yeah,
like use a screen reader and show, hey, here's how somebody who doesn't see your page is able to access it. Can you navigate it? Can you do this task? Can you log in? And just having a relatively simple like accessibility day in class can go a long way, and really just showing students that, hey, this is a thing that you can pay attention to, and you can, just by designing your products to be inclusive and accessible, you can make a really big impact on the product and on the people, on users' lives as well. If they're able to access these things that they normally wouldn't be able to access to, it makes a difference.
that's so true. Yeah, it does not take a lot of effort either. As you said, yeah,
Yeah, and there's also all kinds of really good tools out there to check your accessibility and
yeah,
check the accessibility of your website. And if you own a website and you're not sure if your website's accessible, I encourage you to go download. Wave is the one I have on my computer, but there's all
yeah,
kinds of different ones, and check it out and see if your website's accessible to the WCAG standards. Um,
yeah,
so there's my soapbox moment. So I guess we're to the last couple questions here. So we've talked a little bit about some advice that you might have to give to listeners and some other questions, but I'd love for you to maybe just sum up your advice as far as advice that you'd like to pass on to listeners both with and without disabilities. And yeah, and what would you distill from your experience so far? What would you like to pass on to listeners who are considering pursuing a career in computing?
yeah. I think one of the biggest piece of advice I can give is to not be scared to ask for what you need. Um, it will really change your life when you uh, ask for what you need to succeed. Don't think that you're being a bother to people. Uh, that is not true. In fact, if you feel that way, uh, think uh, about how they benefit from your accommodations too. They have an easier time uh, communicating and working with you too. So it's really for the best. And yeah, ask for what you need, and then at the same time find role models, find somebody who has gone through the same challenges suited. There are so many mentorship programs these days where you can find such opportunities. I can add the link to their disability and next gen leaders program where they uh, pair you with a mentor. Yeah, so those are my advices.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The last thing that I like to do is give a too long didn't listen. So TLDL. So far, I think we've talked a lot about the importance of support, the importance of having good role models, as well as being yourself and asking for accommodations. What else? Like, what would you give if you had to summarize what we've talked about in this episode in like 30 seconds? How would you go ahead and summarize it?
Oh wow. Oh my god, this is just not just kidding.
No, you
Okay.
can take your time. It doesn't need to be 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. I guess my uh, is find a community of support, be it through social media, be it through a mailing list, or just in person. Find those people who understand you. At the same time, educate yourself about accessibility. Learn about web accessibility, document accessibility, make sure when you're sending, say, a word document to someone in Microsoft Word, you can run the accessibility checker. So make sure to do that. It's these small things, but they go a long way. And then at the same time, follow on disabled people on social media. There are so many great disabled activists on uh, TikTok, Instagram. You can learn so much from them. So yeah, learn. Uh, don't be scared to ask for help, and then find your community.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to CodeAbility. I hope today's conversation encouraged you to think differently about accessibility in computing and the power of inclusive design. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share CodeAbility with others who might find value in these stories. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible people who helped bring this podcast to life. This program was sponsored by Access Computing. The blanket was beautifully designed by one of my former students, Amelia Sims. As for the production, editing, and everything in between, that's me, Meredith Moore. We're always looking to amplify more voices and perspectives in tech, so if you or someone you know has a story to share, please email us at info@codeabilitypodcast.com or message us on our socials linked below. This material is based upon work supported by the National Science Foundation under grant number 2137312. Any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this material are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Science Foundation. Together, we can create a more accessible and equitable tech community. Thanks again for listening, and I can't wait to connect with you in the next episode.